What is going on with Kaspa? In the early days, we saw a very nice rally on the back of very impressive technology. Now, for the last year, Kaspa has been bleeding. Is this potentially a buy the dip opportunity? Let's have a look at the on-chain data, the data most people are not considering. Now, here is why everybody got into the project. Technology that's scalable beyond what Bitcoin offers, yet the same kind of promised decentralization. The problem is that the investments in the project grew much faster than the actual usage. Have a look at the number of active addresses. This is from KAS.FYI, but we've also got a longer term chart. Every now and then we see waves of usage that then subsequently die down again. There isn't real growth here. It seems to be mainly test transactions that sometimes push up the usage and then make it collapse again. Here is the transaction count, again the short-term chart, and here the longer-term chart. Again, it's really not that impressive. And that's probably the main reason why the price development is struggling that much. Kaspa is getting pitched as a replacement for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin in the early days looked very different in terms of usage. Have a look at the number of active Bitcoin addresses. This grew quite consistently in the early days. It stopped growing in the last 6 to 7 years. That's because now Bitcoin is mainly used as an investment vehicle, not that much anymore as peer-to-peer money. That was very different in 2013 and 2014, right? When Silk Road used Bitcoin to process payments. But at least in the early days, we saw nice growth of the usage of the technology, both in terms of active addresses, also in terms of number of transactions. And so that then explains why Kaspa relative to other altcoins is struggling recently. So what we see here is the Kaspa price on a logarithmic chart relative to the others market cap. Now the others market cap is all the altcoins that are not in the top 10. We have peaked in Q4 of last year, but there's the argument that we're already in a downtrend for the last 2 years. Yes, the last few days have been positive, but it's just a drop in the bucket. Even a 27% outperformance cannot compensate for a quite consistent bear market, right? A drop of more than 80% again versus other altcoins. So this is idiosyncratic to Kaspa. Kaspa is doing worse than the rest. This is not just the altcoins in general going down. This is Kaspa going down more. Many altcoins seem to be struggling at roughly the $5 billion market cap. So between 2 to 5 billion, that's where most altcoins that get hyped tend to peak. And then at some point, the market makers potentially, they start selling off if there's no additional interest. And that's then when the market cap declines again. It's important to keep that level between 2 billion and 5 billion in mind. If you're interested in any other trending altcoin, have that as a reference point. If it's already in that range, it might turn around if growth doesn't continue. I don't really like doing it, but that's how the YouTube game works. That's how the algorithm works. Please give this video a like if what you've seen so far has been useful. Thank you very much. I've actually made several videos on Kaspa before on this channel. The first one was published 810 days ago. There was a lot of interest in Kaspa. That interest then subsequently fell. So have a look at the following videos. Kaspa didn't outperform in terms of views anymore that much. And in a way, the price development of KAS reminds me that of Cardano. Cardano also doesn't have that much usage on chain, yet the market cap grew very, very high. Have a look at the total value locked of Cardano. It's currently at 188 million. Yet the market cap is at 15 billion. That's happening while the number of active addresses continues to decline. It's currently at around 20,000 per day. Yet the price was able to go through a second rally, right? Where it outperformed the rest of the altcoin market by 350% almost. But the long-term trend, unfortunately, can't go against the actual usage of the chain. Yes, we might see a bottom in Kaspa at some point as well. Again, this is Cardano relative to the others market cap. But where will that bottom be? Is it this support? Is it this support? The overarching bearish trend is still intact. And yes, very short term, we might rally by 50%, potentially even more than 100%. But long term, Kaspa continues to get sold off. Probably because a lot of the early price appreciation was simply just speculation and there wasn't enough usage of the chain directly. Let's have a look at the short-term momentum, because there isn't just a spot trading where there was 23 million worth of trading volume in the last 24 hours. There's also the bets on the price, the perpetual futures, where there was 59 million worth of trading volume. So there's more price discovery happening on the derivatives, on the perpetual futures. And as so many altcoins, Kaspa also saw the massive liquidation event on the 10th of October. Many perpetual futures traders got liquidated on that day. And that's quite surprising, given that Kaspa didn't go down that much. It only went down by roughly 37% on that day. That was less than the overall altcoin market that dropped by 48%. Yet we still saw all of those liquidations. The funding rate briefly turned very negative. We can see though how long term we are less positive than we used to be before that flash crash. So it looks like a market maker that tended to be bullish most of the time went out of business. We don't yet have the news which market maker went belly up here. But at some point, we might see the contagion here, right? The same way how 3 Arrows Capital, for example, went belly up as a consequence of the Terra Luna collapse. We might see some kind of delayed news coming from that October 10th crash. There is a structural change, right? Market makers aren't that bullish anymore. And that's the same for Kaspa. The open interest, so the amounts of bets on Kaspa have crashed. They went from 200 million all the way down to 75 million. And it now continues to go down. So there's very little leverage in the asset. The trading volume, it did stay somewhat stable though. And so yes, the technology of Kaspa is interesting, right? It's very scalable, it's very quick, it's very cheap. But the problem is that it doesn't have enough adoption. And very often projects don't fail because the technology doesn't work. Very often they just fail because they don't get accepted by the market. And that seems to be happening with Kaspa. And so yes, short term we could rally, but long term as an investment over the next years, I've got my strong doubts that Kaspa will be able to outperform the rest of the altcoin market. And very likely Bitcoin will continue to stay number one. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish this regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in Premium. A link to Premium pops up over here on the screen as well. This is where I share my own trades. This is where you can also invest alongside with my trading. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Cheers.